So now we have the traditional and the best value, right? And everybody wants high competition, but everyone wants high performance. And what people didn't realize is that high performance comes when you don't take accountability for other people's work, right? And you can only utilize expertise when you get out of the business of taking accountability for other people's lives, right? You become an expert at knowing what type of structures and systems you need to be able to actually utilize other people's understanding instead of trying to take accountability for it. But the issue has always been, you can never, it's so hard to tell the chicken from the other birds, right? Right? Everyone has always had this issue. And I wanted to go back so you guys had a little historical data in this ASTM roofing materials case study that Dean went to. So this is the standards, if you didn't know, it's the standards for all construction materials in the US, right? This group goes and tells people for every federal government building, everything, even private buildings, they operate by ASTM standards usually. So Dean, in terms of roofing material, he was invited to this meeting. So they all get together in this big meeting. They get all the manufacturers of that material together. And what do? They say, okay, we got this material, this silicone waterproofing material, and now we got to test it to see what the standard should be. So they tell all the manufacturers, go out and get it tested. They do all the tests. Now, do they know how well these tests are being done by each manufacturer? No, they don't. They have, this is how you should do it. But as you can tell from some of these guys going from 100 to 2 tensile strength, 150 to 600, I mean, how can you get that range if you're doing it the same way every single time, right? That's a crazy huge range. So what do? Well, we go to tensile strength, and you got this thing being done. And does anybody remember, have you guys seen this before or remember it when Dean presented this? How do they figure out what the standard is?
The lowest.
It's the lowest. It's 150. And why is the standard 150? Why do they have to make the standard that?
So they don't eliminate anybody and get sued.
So they don't get sued.
Yes, but why would they get sued for making a decent standard?
Because they don't know what the right standard would be. And they don't.
Yeah, because they don't know what tensile strength even means. That's the issue. Do you have to have a 400, tensile strength of your material to keep it from leaking, keep your roof from leaking? That's the key. Yes.
Just FYI, I know some of you guys know this, but being architect, when we put an ASTM standard in a spec, it's the gospel. Right? But
Yeah.
we don't know this. I don't know how many specifications I've written over my career, and when I saw this, I thought, oh my God, this is a joke, and so that's what's, again, kind of getting back to a holistic approach is you have these kind of silos of information and data, and, when you get the ASTM standard, it's like, the Quran or you're just going, yeah, this is it, but
Yeah.
it's really not very good information when you look at this. And then at some point, there is a question, what is a good tensile strength? And then, of course, if you really dig into this, there's a lot more like, what's elongation?
Yeah. Yes.
Sometimes
All the rest of them, right?
But anyway,
Yeah.
but that's a really dysfunctional thing. I mean, that's like a cornerstone of specification writing for technical people.
Yes.
And then you find out, my gosh, this is really just another political event at some point. Sorry.
And that's really what it becomes. You take the minimum of everything. But my question is, why does it ever get to this? And what I say is, it gets to this because people are trying to take what? Control or accountability over someone else's area, right? They're trying to force and control people. And because they do that, what this causes is what? It causes a disconnect. And see, what people don't even realize is we think having it as a minimum and you want something greater. If everyone looked at it like this, would that be a good thing? It wouldn't. People don't understand. Whether you're looking at this way or this way, neither is good because it's off of what? It's off of reality. Either way, it's not going to be efficient because it's off of reality when people are skewing their vision because of someone else's directive, right? And of course, you know, you got 2,100 tensile strength compared to the rest of them. It looks great. And this is what happened to all these roofs overnight. I think it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, right? Just hundreds of roofs popped overnight. It caused a ton of damage. And what ended up happening is some of the facilities that got the most damage, they went out and sued the contractors. And what did the contractors do? They said, it's not our fault. It's actually why, because they couldn't even sue ASTM standards or anything, or the manufacturers, because what did it come down to? That who actually gave them the directive for this? It was the owner. So the owner took all liability. They couldn't get any money back. They had to use their insurance for it. Isn't that crazy? Absolutely crazy, but this happens all the time, not just with roofing. But we already knew one of the natural laws here is that whenever we have to choose, right, make a decision, and this was done in the Netherlands, I think, right? The perfect score was 0, the computer got the best, the AI got the best, but the students didn't get very far off, right? The ones who got the worst were the professionals. And the reason being is they were using their own expertise and bias. And they did the worst. So yes, we're trying to do this. We're trying to minimize all of the non-AI activities or the maximize the BVA stuff, if you want to say that. So of course the expert, and we'll just go over this real quick. This is what you need as an expert. Or in other words, this is what you need to be able to do what? To refrain from trying to take over someone else's job. And the first is we got to make it, you got to be able to see things very simply, right? You got to be able to simplify. This is not only to be able to make sure other people can understand what you're saying, but if you can't see it simple for yourself, there's a big issue, because then if it's not simple for you, then you also can't see the future, right? And that's the key. We make it simple, we can see the future, and if you do that, then you can also tell the difference. You can tell the difference from the beginning to the end. You can tell the difference between the value that you add compared to value other people add, right? And this is the issue with this stuff, is it's not simple, right? People don't understand what this actually means. So, it's the natural laws. We understand the natural laws, which allows us then to be able to take the information, and the more information we can see, then we start being able to see what's possible. The one thing I want to make sure we realize is that when we're looking at the event and any type of project, who determines if this project is a success? The owner does. Why would the owner determine it?
Because they're setting the initial conditions. They're defining the existing state, and they're telling the expert, this is what we want to look like this is what we want. This is what we expect it to look like when you're done.
Okay. So you're saying the owner should be telling the vendor, kind of this is what we want. Now, how would the owner know that if they don't know what's possible? Because is the owner going to build this
No,
or do this?
but they should know what they want. Well, they have an idea of what they want.
Yeah, but then they're going to have to do what? Explain it to someone else. And then it's going to increase this. It's not the owner. Anybody have any other idea?
Experts, I suppose.
I'm gonna say that too.
The expert. Who's the expert?
The vendor.
The vendor. Okay, so the expert vendor is going to do it. Is the expert vendor the cause of the risk? Who creates the risk on projects? It's the owner does. It's the non-expert does, right? So how's the expert going to deal with someone who's causing them risk when they're not, and causing delays and issues? See, do you have a comment, Mark? I see you wanted to say something.
Well,
about it.
I'm not sure this is the right answer, but I think, well, let's do it this way. What I try to do is keep the owner out of the way of the expert, so that the expert can do what they want to do, and also have a process, a big process,
Yeah.
where, again, we're being responsible for the process that keeps that from happening, because it can happen, it will happen.
Yeah.
And it can happen even when you try to mitigate it.
Have you had projects where you try and mitigate it and everyone knew it was coming down the pipeline, but it still happens?
Yeah, but I will say in my current life,
Yes.
I have it happen a lot less.
Okay.
And I think the reason for that is because, partly because I have a clientele, and this is not always true, but I have a clientele that has a fairly low expertise in construction.
So they let you do
And
your
so
work.
so they kind of, I
Yeah.
hate to say trust the process, that's a bad thing, right? But they do kind of trust the which kind of works. But at the end of the day, and then we have enough track record now where they see that
Yeah.
if
So, one of the biggest issues I've seen with people coming in and trying to do the best value system is they keep saying, well, the client doesn't buy in. Even people that I'm working with on the team doesn't buy in. And then there's issues and the project doesn't end well. But my thing is, what determines the success of, what is a successful project?
Yeah, I mean, if it's, when it's operating properly, when it's working, and what you wanted to procure, is working
Mhm.
properly, the people are happy, you have, good rapport with the
Yeah.
people.
See, what I would say a successful project is when everyone's happy. It can have the biggest delays, the biggest change orders. It's when people are happy. And who determines if people are going to be happy at the end? It's the visionary. It's the guy who understands the most and is the leader on the project. In reality, the BVA person is the one responsible to make sure and can make sure that every project they go on is a success. Yes?
Isn't there always a natural sort of Bayesian limit on what the expert can bring?
There is. 100%. Everyone is constrained.
Okay.
So the
That
leader,
have to be factored into the
ah,
likelihood that you're gonna get that BVA result in the end.
100%. The leader is a guy who sees it from beginning to end in the beginning, right? And the leader can see what? They can see the reality. In reality, the leader doesn't see any risk. They just see what? They just see what's going to happen. And so the leader knows up front when everybody has wrong expectations of what this project is going to end up as, right? And so the leader is wise enough that if the expectation is too great, they're going to what? They're going to walk away. But most of the time, the expectation isn't too far off, and what are they going to do? They're going to make sure everything is documented well. They're going to document the right things. They're going to make sure the right people on the project see the right information at the right times. So at the end of this, when it doesn't go well, when it is over budget, over time, things don't even work maybe, everyone looks at it and says what? Oh yeah, we did what we could, right? Okay, this is great, we'll just go do another project now to fix this thing, right? See, what I've begun to realize is BVA is not everything goes well. BVA is when someone is smart enough to understand what reality is and makes it simple for the people around them so that they kind of have an expectation what it's going to be and what's going to happen so no one's upset. And that's why usually people who are very highly intelligent, everyone's happy with them, even if a project doesn't go well. And we are going to show you some projects that we did with the city of Santa Fe, if we have time, where they just went and did everything against BVA. And I told Joe, we knew they were going to do this, just let them do it. Right? Let them do it, but let's document, and at every point, let's make sure that the head guy knows, hey, this is going to be a delay, this is going to be this is going to be that. And at the end of it, they were very happy. And they're like, well, this is the best we could have done. We did everything we could. Of course, I'm telling you, well, they didn't, but it's okay. They know that we helped them, right? Because you can't change people, and you can't take accountability for the things they're going to do. All you can do is set up the right system so everyone sees it. Yes, Mark?
Just in my business, so there's kind of a system, just say this, and it works, but it's not static, it's fluid. So each time, there may be conditions that change that you're not aware of, that change the outcome.
Yes.
Here's an example. So I have expert roofer, they do it every time. One time, all of a sudden you realize they're having some issues on the site.
Yeah.
Time, communication, and what you find out is they got spread out a little thin. Delbert will know this. And they subbed out their labor. And so, and now, at the end of the day, I really depend on the expert. I mean, I'm kind of the process person, so maybe I have some expertise, maybe I don't.
Yeah.
But the expert, if the roofer comes to me, I'm using roofing, there's other things, but if the roofer comes to me and says, we're doing a really good job, and I have ways of kind of testing that.
Mm-hmm.
But here's an example the other day. I'm doing a really good job. I go, that's really great. Got a new client. And then I talk to the architect and they go, well, their paperwork's not real good. So I guess my point I'm trying to make about happiness is that, to me, that's not dominant data.
Yes.
That's my opinion. I'd like the paperwork to be better. I can
Yeah.
coach my vendor on the paperwork, but at the end of the day, they're doing a damn good roof up there, and that's
Yeah.
what is important. Now, if I talk to the vendor and they say, well, we're having some issues, then we have to look at that. So you're always having to evaluate, even when you're having success, especially when you're having success, that these things, especially conditions,
Yeah.
there's natural laws don't change. And then also at some point, I know this sounds hokey, but Delbert probably chime in on, is maybe educating your client a little bit. They'll call Riles.
Yeah.
Hey, I got this issue, the architect's fussing about
Yeah.
the paperwork. I go, well, hold on,
Yeah.
but
Well-
let's.
Well, Mark, here's the thing: is you're right. Things always change, but whose responsibility is it to know the changes that will occur before they happen?
Yeah,
It's the guy with the vision, right? And it's like I tell my group, right? I always tell my group, look, they come to me and they're like, hey, Jacob, I'm thinking of doing this because I'm their mentor. So I was like, okay, I'll look at it. Yeah, it looks good. And then they'll come to me next week and they'll say, hey, this is not going well. I was like, Yeah, because you got to do this. They're like, well, you just told me it was okay to do this last week. I was like, yeah, it was okay to do that last week, but not this week.
Hey, that happens all the time, okay? Wait, not with me though, not with me.
Well, and to the point of
But
back to real world, practical, and Delbert chime in on this, but what we've learned is, if we wanna have a best value contractor,
yeah,
we cannot have them subbing out their labor. And so we actually build it into the process.
yes,
And
and
that helps to, because some of these things kind of seep out, evolve. I mean, you like to think you think of everything, and you try
Yeah.
to, and most of the time you think of most things. But every once in a while, something seeps out like that, and then you come back and you
Yeah.
you modify it.
But you got to remember, you got to have the ability to observe enough in your organization to know what's going on in real time, right? That's part of the structure. The other thing I always tell my group is, hey, it's not working, well then figure out how to make it work, right? And that's a hard truth to know, but it's one that is very relevant to people nowadays, because everyone wants to, it's this or it's that, but yeah, we understand. But if you're the one who's supposed to be the visionary, then you can't actually turn to anyone else to blame. Because who's the one who's supposed to be seeing the reality? Yeah, it's you, which is a really tough thing for a lot of people to figure out, right? Which is,
Isn't that that's sort of the purpose of the weekly risk report, at least that's how we use it, right?
yes,
Is that, yes, we're hiring expert vendors, but everyone, I think you mentioned a moment ago, that is sort of limited in their ability to see everything,
yeah,
right? So they can see what they can see, and the stuff that happens that they can't see is
Yeah.
what the weekly risk report is.
Yes.
is for.
and the weekly report will change. As Pascal knows, he's made modifications for his clients and whatnot. Depending on what the vendors can do and what the people see, it will have to change, right? To fit what they can do. And it's like, if you find a really good roofing vendor and they start subbing out their work because they have too much, well, you got to know why they're subbing out their work, because it might be all they can do. But it might be better than having another guy come in that's not subbing out his work, that does worse work. So it's the ability to see what the constraints of people are and take that into account to allow everyone to do what they can when they come in, right? And I can tell you, I invite a lot of students to come and work with us that have incredible disabilities and minimized capability in a lot of different areas. But the reason I can still allow them to come in and excel and improve their life is because I take that into account on what they can do. But that doesn't mean they can't do anything, right? And that's the visionary's job, is to shape it, right? Shape the structure so they can utilize everyone for what they can do.
I think just kind of